Self-service technologies. Ranging from electronic, mechanical devices to talking bots and immersive AI, self-service technologies have grown extensively over the years.
What we see, both anecdotally as well as in research, is that there are two sides in terms of the impacts of these SSTs or self-service technologies.
For instance, when airlines introduced online and app-based check-ins, there was heterogeneity in consumer adoption of these technologies. While some saw a lot of consumers move to using e-boarding passes from these SSTs, others saw that consumers were hesitant in making this move.
On one hand, self-service technologies help consumers access services when and where they want at a lower cost. But on the other hand, self-service technologies are impersonal. They do not have the human touch. There is no emotion to a machine. When you introduce a service for the first time on the tech is when many companies witness consumers withdrawing from the technology. So what really happens when organizations introduce innovative services on self-service technologies? How does that impact customer growth? How does that impact the firm's performance and the value they get from the technology? So on one hand, you've had an explosion in the number and variety and quality of self-service technologies. On the other hand, you've had a change in the demand side. Consumers have started to expect more, especially after COVID. And that led to a reset of consumer expectations. We expect more and more consumers to demand better SSTs and more innovative services on these SSTs. And it's not just an expectation setting. Consumers will demand this.
To understand this better, let us find out what constrains a consumer from accessing a service.
Consumers face three kinds of constraints when accessing services: an access constraint, a time constraint, and a financial constraint. The first thing that you have is what we call an access constraint, which really means I would like to access the service maybe at night after my work is over. But the bank closes at 5 p.m. So therefore there's a spatio-temporal constraint between my availability and the availability of the service. A time constraint occurs when the time available for the consumer is lesser than the time it takes for the service to be manually provisioned. Creating a draft takes 20 minutes, but I have only 10. And a financial constraint occurs when the cost of the service is higher than what I can afford to pay for. I might go to the bank and ask for money to be wire transferred, and that might cost me 50 rupees. But I can do a wire transfer using my mobile app for free.
When these constraints are addressed, customers adapt better to a service. An ATM is convenient, nearby, quick, and cheap. So most people use it.
However, when an organization introduces a service for the first time on a self-service technology, we call it as an innovative service, results in all of these three constraints being increased.
Let's say there is a new service to buy a house online, but customers are seeing this for the first time. Then there is bound to be a lack of trust and awareness.
So all three constraints get magnified or increased when an innovative service is offered on an SST. So what should organizations do?
To find out, this paper researched three hypotheses. 1. SSTs will positively affect customer growth as they help overcome the three identified constraints. 2. Innovative services on SSTs negatively influences customer growth. 3. Marketing and human resource interventions will help mitigate the negative effect of innovative services on SSTs.
We empirically test our research model by collecting data from two sources. Our primary analysis uses a longitudinal archival dataset. Credit unions in the United States form the empirical context for our investigation. In 2018, there were nearly 6,000 credit unions in the United States, which collectively served more than 114 million consumers. All credit unions in the United States must file a disclosure with the federal government. And we use these disclosures to create a longitudinal data set on which we run an econometric analysis to identify whether our hypotheses are supported or not.
But the challenge was that this data was dated and more recent technologies needed to be included.
So to address this concern, collected primary data from around about 180 credit unions in the US, just prior to the pandemic. So the secondary data set was supplemented with a primary data set, and we replicated the analysis using this primary data set, wherein we were able to study the effect of innovative services on newer SSTs, and we found the same results.
And from the study emerged 3 key findings.
The first is a slight deviation from prior literature. What we find is that on the average, SSTs have no significant effect on customer growth of firms. When innovative services are introduced on SSTs, the higher the innovative service, the more likely that the SST will have a negative effect on customer growth of firms. The third finding is how investments in marketing and human capital mitigate the effects of innovative services on the SST customer growth relationship. And the reasoning behind this is quite intuitive.
Investing in human capital creates more informed employees who help customers transition smoothly to an SST. Along with this, marketing helps build trust and awareness about the change. This way, negative effects of innovative services on SSTs are resolved.
Let me illustrate my results with an example that we might all be familiar with, the DigiYatra app. DigiYatra consists of kiosks and, more importantly, an app that is available for us to install on our mobile phones. To increase the uptake and adoption and increase customer growth in terms of adoption of this app, there should be concurrent investments both in marketing as well as human capital. There should be advertisements around telling consumers that their data is safe on this so that the trust issues get resolved, and making them aware of how to operate this app and the services on this app. On the other hand, there should also be investments in the quality of human capital that is deployed, both in developing the app and, more importantly, in guiding consumers as they use this service at the airports.
In addition to understanding an SST's effect on business value, the study also clears the ambiguity from its preceding literature about its effect on customer growth. It also adds to the discussion between techno-pessimists and techno-optimists on AI-based services.
Techno-pessimists believe the AI-based self-service technologies will render us all jobless. Techno-optimists, on the other hand, believe it will free us up to do more value-adding jobs. What we've really found is that self-service technologies will only create value if you make investments in human capital, thereby adding to the techno-optimist side of the debate. What I'm really excited about is being able to test the findings of this paper and extend them in the context of immersive technologies. So this study of ours helps connect the past to the future. We have very strong theory and extremely strong results over a long time period of nearly 20 years, thereby allowing us to learn from the past. Because those who don't learn from the past are condemned to repeat it in the future.